Hello and welcome to Game Day Grace, the podcast where sports and faith unite in powerful conversations. I am David Schiele. That is Cory Mose. We have been doing this thing for one whole year and some change. We've been doing this thing for a year and some change. That is what we are celebrating today. First, we want to thank you. Yes, you, wherever you are listening or watching right now. Could be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or our official Facebook page. We want to thank all of our followers on TikTok, all near 400 of y'all that came out of nowhere. Because, it was my pride that did not want to get on TikTok when this podcast first started. But we're going to talk about all that stuff today, man. We're recapping 1 year and some change of Game Day Grace. And we've talked about it before in multiple episodes about how this thing started because of Shaq Barrett just being open about his faith after the loss of his daughter. Shout out to him for avoiding the diarrhea from his other daughter. I don't know if y'all have seen that video. For some reason, it was on Sports
He was moving.
Center. Oh, yeah, he could still go. Yeah, clearly. That man jumped over the chair to avoid a blowout from his daughter, if you haven't seen it. But shout out to Shaq Barrett, man. He is part of the reason why this platform even exists. But I first want to give thanks to Jake Camarda, former punter from the Buccaneers, because he was our first guest. It was his yes that really started all kind of stuff. But even before that, there was your yes, Cory. So I ain't mean to undermine you.
You good. I agree. Jake's yes was important.
Yeah, Jake has huge importance when it comes to this pod. But Cory's yes was very important because at first Cory was just going to be a guest. He was on my list of guests, and the Lord said, no, he's going to be your co-host. And so I want to hear from your perspective, bro, just what the last year plus has been like for you, having to do your regular day-to-day with K-View, and then you got Mose Knows, and then all of a sudden you got Game Day Grace.
Yeah, when you came with me with the idea, of course, my first thought was that exactly. Like, I got a lot on my plate already. Can I fit something in? But then when we started to do the pod, it wasn't can I fit it in? It's more so like I low-key need it. And I think that's something that I didn't expect. And that's something that God's been using in the sense of when we get on these episodes and we record them, just hearing different stories, hearing different testimonies, it eases my mind and it gives me peace to know that God is working all across the nation and all across the world. And so who am I to not want to spend 30 minutes to an hour just talking about them? And now within my busy schedule, this has become kind of like a spiritual reset. And it kind of calms my spirit down and honestly like recalibrates every single episode. And I've really been grateful to hear people's stories and hear people's testimonies because I had no idea the impact it would have on my day-to-day life whenever we do record. So definitely thankful for the opportunity to even co-host this with you. Thankful that God put that on your spirit. And I had no idea how he was going to use it, but he has been. So it's been a blessing. Yeah,
and I'll say this, man. This is episode 49. Our
crazy
episode next week's going to be 50. It's crazy. We done hit 50. Then hit 50 episodes, and in that episode, Cory and I are going to talk about some of those stories that have really impacted us, some of those nuggets of wisdom that we've heard from different guests, and kind of recap some of the things that we've heard from the previous 40-plus episodes where we've had a guest. And I'm going to give it right back to you, man. You talked about just the spiritual reset that you get. What have you, or where have you grown the most spiritually ever since we started this?
Great question. I think the first thing would probably have to be just my intentionality with the Holy Spirit. I think that's something that I really wasn't tapping into before we started the pod. But as I started to listen to people's testimonies about listening to the Holy Spirit, being obedient, and then, of course, you being obedient with the podcast and going forward with it and listening to your spirit, I think that's something that I really didn't, I don't want to say like understand, but more so utilize. Mm-hmm. And so I'm such like a prayerful guy, prayerful, that's a word. And of course, reading the word, but like tapping into the Holy Spirit was something I really wasn't using a lot. And so hearing people talk about it, hearing you speak about it, even off the pod when we just talk personally, it's been really a cool challenge for me. to challenge myself and utilizing that more. So I think that's been the biggest thing when it comes to my faith is utilizing the Holy Spirit more and more, and just trusting that if I just listen to that voice, that they're going to guide me the right way. So that would be probably my answer to that. What about you?
Ooh, man, it's because there's a lot of different areas, right? Because I've had a lot of life changes since I started the pod, right? My wife and I recently just had a baby boy. So, that's been a huge life change. If I look tired, I am. One of the friends of the pod, man, shout out to Chaz, our boy Chaz.
Yeah.
He hit me up not too long ago and said, "Hey man, you sleeping good?" I said, "Brother, what is sleep, man? What you mean?"
He should know. He's the one that got the experience.
Right. He should know. He's a father himself, right? I got a baby bottle sitting somewhere on this desk next to me right now. There you go. It's next to the PS5. Okay, that's how you know the dad life is real. The
duality of a man right there.
The PS5 is right here and the baby bottle is next to it. But I think the number one thing for me had to be checking the fruit that I display. We're not gonna get into Charlie Kirk on this pod. I'm gonna just put that out there right now. But the only thing I'm gonna say about that is, ever since his unfortunate death, which was evil, I'll say that straight up, evil, right? The number one thing I've seen debated is his fruit. People have been on two different sides about the fruit that he bared. Now, again, we're not gonna get into all that, but in terms of me, right? I've been checking my fruit. Because the fruits of the Spirit are very plain in Galatians chapter 5, and the fruits of the flesh are very apparent in Galatians chapter 5. And so when I started this pod, I didn't tell nobody. I didn't tell my sports director. I didn't tell my news director at the time. I didn't tell any of our producers. I didn't tell any of the other reporters in the Tampa Bay market, right? By the time we got to about episode 5, everyone knew I had a pod. And not only did everybody know that this podcast existed, but they also knew which people would probably be a good guest for this podcast. And now they're telling me, "Hey man, you need to have so-and-so on the pod. Hey, you need to get so-and-so on the pod." Or they just, if they see me out at a story or a press conference, "Hey man, how the podcast going?" I didn't tell nobody about this podcast, man. I just started it. I literally started it, and I created all of the social media and the YouTube pages for it while covering a hurricane. I just did it, right? And so ever since then, I said, okay, people are always watching. That's one thing my pastor tells us. He goes, "Hey, people are always watching. You literally never know. Like, you don't know when they're watching, but they are watching." And that really woke me up when people would come up to me and ask me how the podcast was doing. I didn't even know they were listeners, subscribers, anything. I knew nothing about that. And so I said, okay, my fruit really, really does matter, no matter the circumstance. And, that has been a challenge because we're not perfect. And sometimes things are going to go not according to plan. You know what I mean? Somebody could forget a battery, or they could, I think there was an instance where I was doing a live shot and somebody moved my SOT line. Like, I had a whole line for a SOT and the line moved somehow all the way down the rundown. So I tossed to a SOT that we don't have.
Not there.
And I hear the producer go, "Not there." So now I'm improvising, right? And I'm like, well, at least I know what the SOT says. But, things like that, not getting cued. I don't know why that's happening these days, where people are just like, they just don't cue you. All you just hear "go," and you're like, what? Half the tease, the live tease, was you looking at your phone. Stuff like that. And it'll bother you, right? But the fruit that you display after those moments, man, that's really important. And that speaks to people, because I don't want somebody to say, "Ain't you the one with the podcast?" after I do something crazy. I don't want to be looked at like, I know that ain't the Christian guy acting like that. And so that's been the thing for me is making sure that fruit was in check.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the workplace, because when you put it on socials, then, like you mentioned, the people around you notice, especially the people that you work with every single day. And so you kind of alluded to it, but have you seen kind of like a change in your spirit at the workplace, just so you can, of course, display God's love, compared to maybe letting that flesh take over in certain times of course, frustration?
those instances that I brought up, those have been the only times where like my flesh really got to rise, really for real, for real. But I think it's been other areas. It's been areas of like pride, areas of jealousy or envy, because those are also fruits of the flesh. Like you know what I'm saying? Like those also are not things of God. So just because you don't cuss somebody out doesn't mean, you know, you have solved the whole issue, right?
Yeah.
There could be other things. And so I think, you know, pride in my work or being envious of somebody else's work, you know, and trying to just be in the comparison game. You know, we just had our brother Avery talk about it last week. Those things come up in the workplace a lot. We've had a lot of changes in our newsroom as newsrooms everywhere, especially in our company of Tegna. Everybody knows about the Tegna Nexstar news, right? You don't, you know, then there's a spirit of fear that gets attached to that because you don't know what's going to happen to you. Like, oh, what's going to happen to my job, right? And so I'm seeing all these different things where my response to that stuff matters too. Not just something going wrong, but just changes in general. I have a new news director and a new GM at my station, right? Changes happen, things happen, right? You get new people. New people have different spirits attached to them. You know, my last news director, man, shout out to her, bro. When she was basically told that she was gonna have to get gone, you know, I told her straight. I went to her office and told her straight up. I was like, I'll lay hands on anybody in this office, not violently, in prayer. I was like, I'll lay hands on anybody in this office.
Great clarification there.
Yeah. Not I was gonna punch somebody over her. It wasn't like that. But it was because something came up.
Yeah.
For her. And her job was on the line or whatever it was. I closed the door and went straight into preacher mode. I didn't care. I gave her 3 verses to look at and texted her after she got off. And I was like, did you look at the scriptures? And then I told her after that, I was like, I will lay hands on anybody in the middle of in the newsroom. I don't care. I really will. Because that's really where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's real. You know, it's funny. You spoke about people coming up to you about the pod and saying like, hey, how's it going? Or good job. I spoke to a class at UT last week. And this is like sports reporting class. And they had a list of questions already set up for me. So it was like a round table type Q&A. And one of the questions was about the pod. They were just like, hey, saw your profile, did some research, saw you had a Christian podcast. Like, what made you want to be a part of that? And how much does your faith kind of correlate with your job? And it's like, going into that classroom, I had no idea that was going to be one of the questions. But again, you put it out there on social media, you let people find it, and you never know who's all listening, who's tuning in. And so now I had opportunity to talk to these students about my faith, about why I wanted to utilize not just a podcast, but now knowing people know I have a podcast, how do I move in the workplace, especially at the press conferences and stuff like that. And, you know, I was able to kind of tell why I have so much energy, why I'm so positive, because that's all they were talking about beforehand was, man, your energy is always great when you walk into a room. And so then once they brought up the pod, I got to explain that's why. Like, God woke me up today, so there's no reason for me to be down in the dumps or feeling sorry for myself or being tired or showing that I could be tired, but like showing that to other people, that's not something I want to do because this day wasn't promised. And so that was really cool and interesting to know that these students are doing research in the bios and trying to ask questions about me, and they find the pod, and now I'm getting asked about my faith. And afterwards, it was really cool because some of the students reached out and kind of thanked me for being open about my faith. And they said that they had multiple people come and speak to the class before in the business, and none of them kind of bring up religion or anything like that. And I was the first guest to kind of talk about my faith in front of the class. So I have no idea, right? That morning waking up, I was going to be able to profess my faith. But, you know, God has a different plan every single day. So when you put this pod out there, when you put it out into the airwaves, like you said earlier, like you never know who's listening. And so then that's what makes it so important to be accountable in the way you act and the way you move, because you want to be able to display God's love and not your flesh all the time. So just thought that was a kind of a cool story that, you know, people listen to the pod, bro, that even students on campus. So it's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that is real cool. I was wondering how you answered that question too when you said someone brought it up. So you told them it was kind of like just having the joy of the Lord.
Basically like how does, I think the question was more so how does your faith play a factor in your job? And so just kind of telling them like just love, like loving everybody when it comes to interviews, when it comes to when I walk into a room and just showing love to everybody and showing them that like you matter because God created them. And so shaking hands with people, saying hi to people, I think to me, that's just my personality, but I also know it's also because I recognize that, like I said earlier, this day isn't promised. And so I want to be able to show that love, show that positivity to everybody around me. And that's kind of trickled down to my peers. And so now when I don't do that, it's always like, hey, something's wrong with Cory. And so now I've realized I can't really have a quote unquote bad day because now people will assume something's wrong. But I like that responsibility. I like that on that type of not pressure, but just expectation, because to me that's fruit of the spirit, like showing love and people expecting that out of me every time I walk into a room because God woke me up that day. So it was real cool to kind of explain that to them. And yeah, so that's basically what I talked about.
Going off of that, we ask every guest pretty much this question. So I guess I'm going to pose it to you, and then I guess you'll give it right back to me.
Yeah.
Rest of 2025, we're going to have, more episodes. Fall season is busy. I'm going to be off paternity leave. So that, it's busy for the both of us. But I know the Lord has definitely been speaking to you throughout the year. So what do you think the end of 2025 has got to look like for you?
I think the biggest thing is prioritizing the right things. And I say that in the sense of like not, how can I explain this? I feel like I've really been praying about this in the sense of not allowing the work to get above anything else. And it's kind of like a tough thing because it's football season, and Texas is a big deal. Their Arch Manning is a huge deal. So you want to be able to do a good job, and you want to be able to post stuff and do the on-camera work on TV, but also do the social media work and all that put together. It's time consuming, to be honest. But like, how much time are you giving to work and how much time are you giving to God? So there's been a couple of days, even this week, where it's just like, bro, you wake up, you go to work, go to sleep, wake up, go to work, go to sleep. And it's like, you got to sacrifice. You got to sacrifice either the sleep on the front end, on the back end, or throughout the day, take a break. Like, you got to sacrifice to spend time with the Lord. And that's really been on my spirit lately. And I feel like that's going to be something for the rest of the year because SEC play is about to start. It's not going to get any easier. It's going to get even more intense at the job. So just trying to prioritize not just time, but quality time with the Lord. And knowing that if I do, I still will feel that rest. I think my mindset goes to like, I need a little bit more sleep, or I need to figure this out so I can go to sleep earlier. But it's like, either way, God will give me the rest if I give him the time. And I think that's where I'm at right now with the rest of the years, trusting that the Lord is going to bless me in my work as long as I continue to give time to him and prioritize him more and more. So yeah, that's been the biggest thing. What about you?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of the same thing, figuring out that the balance, but also prioritizing the intimacy with God. Mm-hmm. We talked about how episode 50 is going to be those nuggets of wisdom that we reflect on. Our boy from the Bulls, man, he dropped that nugget of the intimacy over obligation and works. And I was like, oh, man, that hit me right in the chest. And so it's going to definitely try to be, having more intimacy with the Lord, because now that I have a son, right, it's got to be like, okay, I really got to be in tune with my heavenly Father for me to be the best earthly father that I can be. Right. So that definitely becomes a priority. I know I got a lot of good biblically minded men around me. I'm in Tampa Bay. It's really cool to be covering a team like the Buccaneers, where there are so many men of God in that building already.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I can go to any of them, and they all got kids too. So it's like, yo, I need some help, and they'll just, I know that they will tell me. I know that they'll give me some type of nugget of wisdom. So that is 100% a blessing to be able to have that. And so, of course, I'm looking forward to covering the football again, but also I think just being around some of the brothers, some of the other men in this area that are fantastic fathers, and just really leaning in and, figuring it out, man. I'm a rookie. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. The boy only been here a month, so like not even actually. So, I'm figuring the thing out, and I'm just, I'm excited, man. I know I was sitting here like, I don't know how we going to do the pod with the baby, but it's like the Lord gave me the pod knowing I was going to have a baby. So, we gonna figure it out, brother. We gonna be all right. We gonna be.
What's been
all
the biggest shift for you? I'm curious. Since your son's been here?
Sleep. The sleep schedule, brother. He wakes up every 2 hours. It's the sleep schedule. I will say I've had a lot more time, right? 6 weeks paternity leave ain't no joke, brother. That's just me at the crib. I've been able to watch a lot of football. Just sit down and watch. I don't have to think about angles. I don't have to think about questions for a coach. I can just sit there and watch the football, not caring about what story I'm gonna write afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, man, whatever. Like, I'm just chilling. Now I kind of lock back in as, I get closer to the end of my paternity leave, right? I think about, okay, angles, what's really going on, paying a little bit more attention. But it's been cool to just sit down and watch football. I've been able to play the game a little bit, have not had that opportunity at all.
Yeah.
So I think that's been fun. And also just spending a little bit more time in the Word. Like there's like free websites out there to go get like a certificate in anything. So like I'm gonna go get a sports marketing certificate because I can. It's free.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then something else. It's not free, but I also discovered that. Shout out to our boy Donovan Burris from Baylor. He talked about their Christian sports program or whatever it is. I can get a certificate in sports theology, which I'm gonna go do. I'm very excited, like super excited about that.
Yeah, that's dope.
Like a sports theology certificate, bro. I can take that and do whatever I want with it. Like, that's crazy. So, man, I'm looking forward to all that, bro. Like, it's, I've had a lot of time, but we'll see. Like, ask me this question again when I go back to work, and then we'll see. Yeah. Ask me this question again when I go back to work, but that's not until like a few weeks down the road. We're going to have a few more episodes until then. I hope you all tune in to those episodes, but, as we get back into the whole swing of things with bringing guests in, we just wanted to reflect on that last year. And we thank you if you've been part of this. If you've been a bench warmer for the last year, a month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is, we thank you so much for your yes to listen to Game Day Grace every single Wednesday. We will be back next Wednesday. You can tell I ain't broadcasted or spoken in a while because I'm tripping over words. This is what happens when you don't do reps.
Nah, bro, I'm tripping still. You just nice with it. That's what it is. Your expectations,
Oh, of course. Expectations got to be high, brother. They got to be high. They got to be high. Well, I will say, share this with a family member or a friend because one share can change a life. We are very serious when it comes to the mission of Game Day Grace, which is taking sports and faith, putting them together, having powerful conversations so ultimately we could depopulate hell. That is the goal. At the end of the day, depopulate hell, make more disciples. That is the Great Commission, and we need your help to do that. And we thank you for those who have already been a part of that mission, joining us every week on Game Day Grace. Until we see you next Wednesday, everybody be blessed.